Should you use required labels or optional labels? In this video, we're going to discuss what we should use for good user experience design in form fields. So let's dive in. Required labels let us know which fields are mandatory in a form. However, when required labels or when required form fields outnumber the optional form fields, it can create more visual clutter, as you can see. When we look at these two options, option 2 and option 3, you can actually tell which one is busier visually. So if we only label the optional fields, it takes actually the opposite approach and tells us which fields are not mandatory, which fields are not required. So which approach you should take? Our first option is when we have all mandatory fields marked with an asterisk. So this is one approach. Option 2 also shows the required fields. So we mark the mandatory ones, but I remove the instruction. And the last one is when we mark the optional fields. So which one you should use? Well, it really depends. It really depends on your form. So if you have a form where all fields are required, then instead of marking each of them with an asterisk, maybe this is something that you could do. You can say all fields are required, and then you remove the visual clutter of all of the asterisks. One more thing to keep in mind is you must have seen a lot of forms on the internet where if you see mandatory field, they actually use a red color on that. However, I would recommend using something different because we should keep the red color for error messages. Choose something that is very distinct from red. Here I'm using a teal color. Okay, now let's take a look what research suggests. Group recommends marking required fields in form. So they say using an asterisk to mark required fields is an easy way to improve the usability of your form. Only marking optional fields makes it difficult for people to fill out the form. So if we go back to Figma and have a look at our 3 options, based on Group's requirement, they would recommend against option 3. So they would either suggest option 1 or option 2. Now the usability of a form wouldn't be complete if we didn't include accessibility of a form. So let's have a look what this site suggests. For an accessible form, we do need to indicate which fields are required. So it is suggested that we need to provide a required text in the label. So we also need to provide a star or asterisk symbol. We need to provide a color to identify if a form control is required. And also when it comes to developing the form, then we also need to provide an HTML5 and area attribute that actually says the field is required. So what is the right answer? Well, it depends. It depends on the form, it depends on the product. For example, if you look at a registration form, and let's say all of these fields, for example, email address, first name, last name, username, are presented separately on the screen, one by one, then you can get away without labeling the input fields with mandatory and optional text, because it's easy to understand for users that if they see one input field on the screen, they need to fill it in to go to the next screen. When it is a larger form and I cannot break it down into chunks, then I prefer using option 1. So this is my go-to version and you cannot go wrong with that. There is actually also another research that suggests if an input field is optional, then why do we even display it on the screen? If we don't do anything with it, if it doesn't provide any value to the customer, then why do we ask for it? So this is just another thing to consider. So think about it when you add an optional field to a screen. Like, is it really necessary? You might actually want to remove the optional fields. If it's not mandatory, if the company doesn't do anything with the data, why do we even ask for a data like that? If you would like to see more tiny tips like this, check out this playlist, and I see you next time. Bye.